All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 69 of Tiger Talk Tuesday, transitioning to life after sports. We have a very special guest here today. Tricia Brouk is in the house. Welcome, Tricia.
Thank you, Janine. I am so excited to be here with you. It's amazing.
I know. I love it. Energy is big to me, and I always feel that big energy from you. For those of you that are new to this series, we are discussing all things sport related, life transitions, anything that can be evolved from leaving sport due to injury, retirement, or some unforeseen circumstances that forces you to hang up the jersey, and also life after sports and the many different roads we take as athletes. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with Tricia, a little bit of background before we dive right in. She's a strategic advisor who helps high performing professionals transform into industry thought leaders through the power of authentic storytelling. With her experience as a seasoned and award-winning director, producer, and mentor to countless speakers, she has put thousands of speakers onto big stages around the globe. She helped me get onto a TEDx stage. She founded the Big Talk Academy, which I've been in, which I can attest to, where she certifies speakers in the art of public speaking. She was the executive producer of Speakers Who Dare and TEDxLincolnSquare, and is the producer and host of The Big Talk, an award-winning podcast and YouTube channel. Tricia's book, The Influential Voice, Saying What You Mean for Lasting Legacy, was a #1 new release on Amazon in December of 2020. Big Stages, the documentary film featuring her work with speakers, premiered at the Chelsea Film Festival in October of 2023. I have watched it. You need to watch it. And her newest love is the Big Talk Press, the new publishing house she founded in support of her speakers. Now, why is Tricia here on Life After Sports? Tricia, as a dancer, there's this story that I'm going to let her tell you, that when she was 13 and this beautiful gray dress, why don't you tell us about your history as a dancer, your love for dance, and where this all came to be? Because I am positive that the discipline and the determination and everything you applied to dance completely translates to who you are as a person and who you are today. So let's go back to your younger years as a dancer.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. You talked about hanging up your jersey. For us, for me, it was about hanging up my tutu, right?
Mm.
My point shoes. I am from a small town in Missouri called Arnold. It's 20 miles south of St. Louis. And when I was 7 years old, I saw my sister dancing on stage, and I thought, I want to do that. I had no idea what it meant, but I wanted to dance on stage. And then I became obsessed with PBS and the Nutcracker and classical ballet and the Russian ballerinas and Baryshnikov. And I had posters of all of those incredible athletes and ballet dancers on my walls in my hometown bedroom. When I was 13, I was entered into a competition. My dance teacher entered me into the Petite Junior Miss Dance competition of St. Louis. And I was a young 13. This was many, many years ago. I think 13-year-olds these days are a lot more sophisticated. I was a young 13. I had buck teeth and big ears and big feet, which for ballet, it was great because I had really gorgeous big feet and they were on point. And I was very excited about this idea of competing. I didn't really know what it meant, but I knew that I wanted to dance well. And part of this particular competition is you have to model. I always thought that was ridiculous because you're seeing me dance. Why do you need to see me walk in a T formation?
Mm.
But it was part of the process. And while the girls modeled, the MC would say, "This is Tricia Brouk. She's from Arnold, Missouri, and her hobbies include," and I didn't have any hobbies. I was a dancer. I didn't do
Stickers.
anything except dance. Yes, and you know this story. So I was like, what do I like to do? Collect stickers. I made that up, not
Yeah.
having any other hobby. And I think about how ridiculous it sounded. I was 13 and I collected stickers. Talk about lame. The other part of this process that was really interesting for me was I was from Arnold, Missouri. The other girls were from Chesterfield. Now, if you think about the word Arnold and the word Chesterfield, they even sound rich and poor.
Yeah.
So the modeling portion of the competition required us to wear a different costume, a dress, which meant we had to buy a dress. So, unlike the other girls who had beautiful dresses full of lace and ribbon,
Mm.
my mom took me to Sears and bought me a dress that was gray. I wore a gray dress to the Petite Junior Miss Dance Competition of St. Louis. And then the moment in time came where they announced the winners. Fourth runner up, third runner up, second runner up, first runner up. And then they called my name, the girl in the gray dress. And it was that moment in time that I started to believe I was worthy, anything was possible, and my desire and dreams to move to New York City and to pursue a career as a professional dancer was solidified.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny. I feel emotional when you're thinking about you going to Sears with your mom. I just think it's such a special moment. And for anyone listening, wow, I always get emotional when I talk to you. Because the name of that episode, 598, if you guys go check it out with Tricia, is When They Call Your Name, Listen, right?
Yes, yes.
And I can only imagine how you feel when you think about worth and when you're going to shop at Sears. Well, everybody else has, a fancier dress, but you have all the talent to win. Like, what a special moment for you with your mom, but how you must have been feeling. That's just, I could almost feel you going through it. So it's such a
I,
special moment.
it's a special moment, one that I love to tell. And I also want to draw a parallel to the moment when I called your name at the Big Talk Academy to
Mm.
speak at the virtual showcase. And that was a moment that I won't forget either, Janine, because of how you received that
Hmm.
so fully and with such excitement and with such support of the community. And so I think it is worth saying that no matter what industry you're in, no matter where you are, when they call your name, listen, because you are seen, you are valued. And this might sound
Hmm.
silly, but when you're at Starbucks and they call your name for your latte, give yourself permission to hear that. Someone just called your name. You
Yeah.
are uniquely you. There's only one of you.
Yeah, I love that story of the Great Jessica because it's all you think about the cliches of like don't judge a book by its cover, and we give so much attention to the external world and what we wear on our bodies and our labels and our identities, which is a big part of this conversation. And even as athletes, like you don't need the C on your jersey. I relate to hockey as a hockey player. But I just found, I love that story, the 13-year-old girl. And there's so many, I took some notes too, because there's another episode where you're talking about worth. I'm just opening up my notes here. It was episode 607, and we'll jump a bit back and forth, but it was the one about knowing your worth and this recent photo that surfaced of you in that BAM beautiful heavy coffee book. Um, and you said a line in this part of your podcast, and you said, I danced with Barishnikov 17 years after you thought about it. And what that must have meant and felt for you when you saw that text come through in that picture. Like, can you explain that moment? And we have to dig in a little bit deeper for the listeners, but you speak so much about worth and manifestation and the universe. Talk to us about this journey, this 17-year journey that you've been on as a dancer.
For sure. Well, the 17 years was from the moment I thought I wanted to dance with Brishnikov and the moment I did.
Mm-hmm.
The text message, and that was incredible. I was very honored. And at the same time, I was working.
Mm.
So I was a dancer, he was a dancer. We were dancing for Lucinda Childs, and we had a job to do. And so it was about the work.
Yeah.
What you're also referring to, which I'll give the listeners some context, is several months ago, a friend of mine who was dancing with me in the Lucinda Childs Dance Company, she texted me and said, "Look what I found." And it was the cover of this beautiful coffee table book called BAM Complete Works. And it's huge. And BAM is the Brooklyn Academy of Music, where we in the Lucinda Childs Dance Company culminated our year-long tour. So we were all over the world, and then we ended in New York, which I loved. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Wonder what that book is about. And then she sent me the second picture, which was a photograph of me. She's standing beside me in this book, a full page black and white close-up photograph that I did not know existed. That was from
I'll
20,
post it in the notes for those of you listening. When you go to, I'll post it on my social so you can see it.
and it was 24 years ago.
Mm,
I had no idea it existed. And this picture is the expression on my face, and talk about an athlete, the way my body is so conditioned,
yeah.
and the ease with which the energy falls out of my fingertips and lifts out through the top of my head and grounds through the heels of my feet. I look at her and I think she had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now looking back at her, that's why I did this podcast, because I want to tell her, you need to know your worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I could only imagine. And I've catch myself looking back, and you said something, you couldn't articulate it when you were going through your process of your journey to your Big Apple. I know you like to call it my Big Apple. Um, you just kept showing up, which, my tagline is about keep showing up. But even when your roommate stole your money, even when she held your clothes hostage, all the things, and you had that vision for yourself and worth and vision. It's amazing how, we have to invite the world to trust themselves. So maybe give some context to the listeners. You've won this competition. You've made a decision that you want to eventually go to New York. So bring us on your journey to New York City to get to all these amazing accomplishments that you're doing now as an athlete.
I went to college and got a degree in dance. So I got a BFA in dance. And that was a really smart decision that my parents made to enforce that I go to college.
Yeah.
Now, I went to University of Missouri because I could afford it. And I was working at Mizoom Burgers selling French fries and hamburgers, and realized that if I got a full scholarship at the liberal arts college, that I could transfer. And that's what I did. So first mindset decision.
One thing you guys need to listen to, and athletes, humans, anyone, no matter what you do in life, Tricia could take free classes if she was enrolled at the University of Missouri. And what did she do in her free time? She took as many classes as she could. I think there's a misconception of what it takes too from a work ethics perspective. And I feel like there's a lot of things that I can relate to where I get up at 4:45 in the morning so that I can get my workout in, so I can meditate, so I can write. I still have a day job. I still have kids that I'm helping with hockey. Like, a lot of people don't see that behind the scene dedication and determination, and you're intentional with your time. Like, you rolled in one, got a scholarship at another, almost flunked out just to see your dream come true. And I want to honor that part of you. I admire that tenacity in you, and your energy and your dedication to your dreams and goals. It's very inspiring.
Thank you, Janine. And you have the same dedication and devotion to getting it all in. Something else that I'll just highlight, the listeners know you because they're your listeners, but you never, ever complain. It is a gift to be able to wake up every day and to be able to have as much as you have going on. You're in full gratitude all the time, no matter what is happening. And that is not only who you are and who your soul is, but it's also who you are as an athlete.
Mm,
And so I think that we have that in common. It's about the discipline. It's about knowing that you have to go above and beyond if you want to play at elevation. And
mm,
you and I play at elevation.
yeah, for sure. So you get a scholarship. Now you're at Stevens.
I'm at Stevens College. I do an accelerated dance program 2 summer, 3 years, so that I can get to New York when I'm 20 years old. I wanted to get to New York as soon as possible. So I start waiting tables like every other dancer. I start auditioning. I start going to classes. I get a scholarship to the Cunningham School. I get a scholarship to the Paul Taylor Dance Studio. And that gives me the ability to take classes as often as I want so that I can be in a state of readiness. And you've heard me talk about this as
Mm,
well. As a dancer or as an athlete, you have to be conditioned. You have to be in a state of readiness.
Yeah.
So if I got a call to audition for a company and wasn't conditioned to be ready to do that material, I would never book that job. So I was always taking class so that I was always ready to audition for companies.
Love that.
And what I realized during that process was I don't want to wait tables. It's hard on my body. So how can I innovate? What can I do? I'll become a personal trainer. I will be able to choose my own hours, choose how much I charge. And then when I go on tour, I can actually hire trainers to consult for me who will train my clients. And I would be making, before this was a thing, passive income while I was
Yeah.
on the road dancing. So I set myself up so that I didn't have to have a roommate. I didn't have to live the stereotype of being a starving artist.
Mm.
I wanted to create my own wealth while also being an artist. And I did that successfully for more than 3 decades. I still have a fitness
And did
company.
you see, oh, you still do? Did you like, what inspired that idea? I'm so curious. Was there an inciting moment where you remember just taking a class or seeing something, or kind of then the light bulb went off and you're like, oh, I could do this? Or
It was really when I got the job to tour and to go out of the
Mm,
country, I had cultivated such a rich group of clients, rich meaning enriching group,
yes.
wonderful,
Mm,
that I didn't want to lose them. And I thought, how can I keep them happy and I can go on the road? I'll hire a team.
mhm.
And then when I saw it working, I thought, this is really smart.
Exactly. And
And
it
now
still
the other,
exists today.
it still exists today. And the other reason that it worked so well is because I made a decision to be the kind of leader people would want to work for.
Yeah.
And what that meant is I hired people in the performing arts and I said to them, when you need a sub to go in on the road, when you're sick, when you have an audition, you do not have to replace yourself. I will do it for you.
Mm,
You never have to do the work that I will do for you because this is not your company. And this was the model. If you worked at a gym or if you worked for another company, they would make you find a sub
yeah.
before you could take time off. And I thought that was ridiculous. So I decided to make it as easy as possible for my trainers to live their lives. And I
Mm,
paid them well and I treated them well. And you know what? Every time I reached out and said, Rachel's doing the Rockettes for 4 weeks during the holiday season. Would you take on the clients that she's working with for 4 weeks? And I would always get a yes.
uh, and
And then
that's
Rachel
beautiful
knew,
culture to
yeah.
build, right?
And then Rachel knew after 4 weeks, she still had a job. So that's what I created based on necessity.
Yeah, you provided a solution for artists, right?
Yeah.
What a beautiful thing. So you're in New York City, you're starting this journey. I don't know the ending of your dance journey. I really don't. Take us to, obviously you've made it to the Big Apple, you're dancing on stages. Tell us about what that experience was like for you.
I loved my career and I danced with incredible choreographers and dance companies. Big Dance Theater, Annie B. Parson, who is a award-winning choreographer. She choreographs for Broadway now. She's a Guggenheim Fellowship recipient. I danced with Ben Munisterry, David Gordon, Pickup Performance Company,
Wow.
Eunmyeon, who was a national treasure of Korea. So I had a really eclectic, amazing dance career. And I knew that I did not want to become a dancer who was always injured.
Mhm.
So when I was 35, 36, I decided to do a one woman show, a one woman dance show, where I brought in all of the solos. My choreographers, many of them choreographed solos on me. So that's the equivalent of being a principal at a ballet company. So I had all of these solos and I decided to culminate this new chapter by closing out my dance career by doing a solo show, doing all the solos of choreographers I'd worked for, doing 3 solos that I choreographed on myself. And I really gave myself the opportunity to give birth to the new chapter by closing this one out. So I literally gave myself 9 months
Wow.
I hired an understudy to see her do the dances so I could see what the flow of the show is. I hired a yoga instructor to warm me up so I wouldn't have to. This is the level of athletics that I
Yeah.
invested in myself. I hired a yoga instructor to warm me up so I wouldn't have to think about it. I knew exactly what I was eating at what time of day so I would know how to conserve my energy. I hired a dresser so that in between each piece, I could go into the dressing room and sit down so that my quads wouldn't blow out from lactic acid and she would dress me.
Mm.
I knew exactly how much water to drink in between each piece so that I wasn't full of water. And I spent 9 months preparing. And you've heard me say this, just like a Zen sand sculpture, the mandalas that the Buddhist monks create, those beautiful circular sand sculptures. And when they're all done, they just wipe it away. They just wash it away. And that's exactly what I did with my dance career, like classical dance career, the kind where it takes a lot of warming up, a lot of ice, a lot of massage therapy. And then I transitioned into doing some burlesque, which didn't require as much warming up. Um,
That's fun.
and the burlesque work that I did at the Triad Theater was old school. I did not take any clothes off. I created choreography that was seductive and burlesque inspired. And I got all my friends to do the show with me. So
Oh,
it was a
that's fun.
highly elevated, highly choreographed homage to the art form of the striptease. And I did that for several years, which was super fun. And then I just kind of slowly transitioned completely out of dancing because I wanted to focus more on supporting other people and being on the other side of the table,
Yeah.
the other side of the camera.
What I love about your journey is even though it was planned somewhat, did you still really miss that old version of yourself? Did you struggle? Did you have a couple? Did you go back and forth with that? Did you?
Not at all. This
Okay.
was a
Good.
very, I know that's unique to me
No, it's
because
great.
lots of athletes and lots of dancers experience profound grief
Yeah.
at the loss of who they were in the world. And that is real. And I want to acknowledge that. And I want to honor that because it is real. And I have
Hmm.
lots of friends who can't go see shows with me because it's too painful for them.
Mm.
However, for me, it was a clean closure. It was a clean completion because I knew that I had a legacy that was beyond how long I was on stage and how many people were in the theater.
I love that. If you had some advice for someone looking to eloquently leave their chosen field or sport, what would be your top three things that you feel you really nurtured and cultivated in that transition that would be you could transfer it would be transferable to any sport? What do you feel like was the really big thing that was the secret to success for that?
I think it was acknowledging that the skills that I had as a dancer, beyond the technique and my ability to do triple pirouettes clean, was grit, discipline, and a high risk tolerance.
Mm,
What do those three things do?
change the
If
world.
they change the world, they create an incredible opportunity for leadership,
Mm,
for entrepreneurship. And so you as an athlete, when you're transitioning out of the art of being an athlete and the work of being an athlete, your identity is not lost. Your identity actually becomes bigger because now you can think like an athlete. You may not be able to perform like you were performing on the in the rink, on the ice, on the stage, in the studio, but you can think like an athlete. And when you think like an athlete and you align with what your purpose is, anything is possible.
yeah, absolutely. And I very much resonate with. It's funny, at the end of my TED Talk, I had said, "Once an athlete, always an athlete." And as you just said that, my light bulb moment, I feel like I'm really experiencing my second life as the powerhouse athlete I was, but not as her. So like those skill sets are coming out, and I'm, obviously had to heal through my breast cancer journey and all that stuff, but I truly feel so much I feel grounded. I feel in alignment. I feel um, clear, focused, decisive, intentional. Um, and so when you just said that about thinking like an athlete, I remember when I took your Big Talk Academy, you made reference to treating it like sport. And when I went through the 12 weeks, I treated it. And I think that's why that's when my blinders fall off and I get really um, immersed in a process that I love, is you treated it like that. And I felt like I had to show up because you were my team, and my team expects I got to do the work. You give me the homework, I put in the effort, and it worked like that. So that was just the moment for that just really hit my heart right there, thinking like an athlete, because I feel like that's what I'm doing now, but I'm nowhere near what I used to be.
Well, it's just different. And
Different,
when
correct.
it's just different. I mean,
Yeah.
if I do a tendu, my foot's going to cramp, but it's it's not something that I need to be doing anymore.
For sure. For sure. And I'm so curious, like parents and family, is this a quality? Is this like the history of the Brooks? They're all like this, or are you, a unicorn where you just had this natural? I've always felt like a bigger energy, in the sense of, I always had big eyes for the world and curiosity and gratitude. Did I make terrible decisions and bad choices and bad moods? Sure. But is this something that you've seen modeled, or you just solely followed that guidance? Because you talk a lot about the universe in your podcast. You talk a lot about, um, I love it. What did you call it? Your confidence loop? Your
Confidence, competence loop.
Yeah. And yeah. Oh, competence, confidence. Yeah. You go see the signs, listen, pay attention. When did you give your trust to the universe? Like, how old were you? Because does it go back to the gray dress moment where that was cultivated and bridged because of that?
No,
Or,
not yet. Not yet. I was, like I said, a very young 13-year-old. I was driven and disciplined.
mhm.
And my dance teacher was definitely a mentor to me about what was possible. She took me to New York every summer so that I could get a taste
What
of
was her
the big
name?
Sharon McGuire. She's still very much in my life. Hi,
Oh.
Sharon. I love you. Um, and so I was mentored that this was possible for me.
Mm,
And like any
love
mentor,
that.
you reflect back to your student or your client what's possible for them before they can believe it for themselves.
Is there a
And
clear moment when she said something to you where you just saw the vision for yourself?
it could have been when I won the Petite Junior Miss Dance competition because her studio had never won before.
Oh.
So that studio was the underdog as well. And I think
Mm,
when we did that together, I think she also up leveled her game.
I love that. That's a beautiful thing when you have someone who's coachable,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it works as a team.
It does work for the team.
What,
Um,
sorry, you were saying something before I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
but I
You,
think the moment that I became conscious was when I hired a coach.
mm,
Um, I was in a confidence competence loop, which this is actually what it is. I was an unconscious competent for many years.
mm-hmm.
I was extremely talented and extremely driven. So I was extremely successful. However, there is more. And when you become conscious, the more becomes available. And
Mm,
I hired a mentor to show me my blind spots and to show me I could believe in more. And when I did that and I started seeing the signs and 27 became a thing,
oh, 27.
my world opened up. Yes, we share 27 for the listeners,
We
of
do.
course.
For those of you, like when I just made a decision that I was going to put my speaking at the forefront of what I wanted to do. Um, I remember there were some things online, and Terry Kingston sent me your masterclass information. And I remember I had talked to there's some other things out there online, but it didn't really feel a connection. And then she's like, you should really check out Tricia Brouk, because I had worked with Terry Kingston locally in Ottawa, Ontario. And I think she saw my spark, but I wasn't ready yet. But when I finally made the decision that I was ready, all of a sudden you came into my stratosphere, and I did your master class. And I remember I had to miss the first day, so I had to watch the recording, but I was live on the second day. And I remember when you mentioned about 27, and I was just like, oh God, okay, fine. Like I was like, I gotta do it now. I can't, like she said, 27. I just knew, I just had this deep-seated knowing that I was gonna be in great hands working with you. And for those of you, again, if you didn't hear the bio at the beginning, the Big Talk Academy is a 12-week speaking course that Tricia has put together, and it's a phenomenal journey on what's your message that you're leaving with the world. And you really, I know that as much as I did the work and I followed the lesson plans, but my signature life's currency is showing up. That was because of the work we did in the Big Talk Academy and the process of elimination of what is not the thing that you want to leave as your legacy. So I have immense gratitude for you and the BTA, and for helping choose me to be in your virtual showcase. I mean, that took my confidence. So as a mentor in that respect, thank you.
You're welcome. You're a powerhouse and such a talented speaker, and you're just so special. And I'm really grateful that we're in community together.
Me too. So, okay. So you've created this runway, you're landed the plane as a dancer, but you're still thinking like a dancer and going after your goals and dreams. And I mean, you've got a lot going on. You're very intentional. I've heard what you say before, like people will be like, oh my God, you're so busy. You're like, no, I'm just intentional. And it's funny because as my schedule gets uh, more busy, I'm removing a lot more, which feels really freaking good.
Mhm.
And just being very intentional from a minute to minute standpoint, as opposed to it used to be like an hour a day, a week. What do you do to become as intentional as you are? And how do you, you're seeing through your day to day now and what you've created, and you still leave the space for creativity as you grow and grow and grow? Like, what's that process like for Tricia Brouk?
I'm consistent, and I think that's a big key.
Mm.
I go to bed at the same time every night. I wake up at the same time every morning.
Which is what?
I
Because we want to copy
for
it.
4 o'clock. I get up at 4 and I go to bed at 7:30, sometimes 7. And you've heard me say this. My policy is to not go out past 5 o'clock during the week. So if you're asking me to speak at an event, it better be before lunch. And I've just been very clear about how I spend my time because I am a high performer and I need to maintain my level of excellence in order to serve at the level that I want to for my community and my friends and my family. So I'm very consistent with how much water I drink, with what supplements I take, with what I eat, when I eat. Um, there was a brief moment in time, and it's still a little bit happening. You know this, Janine, for your listeners. Lola and Bella were in my life
Mm.
for Lola 18 and a half years and Bella 12. And a year ago, Lola, I shepherded her to the other side. It was very intentional. It was time for her. She was unwell. And then Bella unexpectedly joined her just 6 weeks later. And it was one of the most devastating griefs I've ever experienced.
Mm.
And they visit me every day, all day. So I know they're still with me. But what has since happened is they sent me Eva Moon, who was at the shelter that I volunteer at. And so I have to say, her little kitten energy coming into my world was very much getting in the way of my self-care and my personal time. So I had
Furry
to figure
critters.
out, yes, so I had to figure out how am I going to navigate what I need in order to be at the level of excellence while I have this beautiful new baby running around the house getting into everything.
Yeah.
And you know me, I'm a problem solver, so I hired childcare.
Of course you did. Oh my goodness. I would like some of that help over here. That's amazing. Well, you know what though, but that's what's you've created what's you want, and you've created the possibility of it, and you just go out and do it. You see the need and you create the solution. I love it. I love it. I love that about you. And You are intentional, and I do know how special it is to have you here as a guest, because of how intentional you are with your time. So thank you for joining us and the listeners. What now, a big part of when I started this series, and I know that this isn't related to your experience, but I had two friends that were found deceased in their homes. They couldn't transition to life after sports, and it was kind of like, we got to start talking
Oh,
about this.
sorry. Yeah, this
Um,
is more
yeah,
common.
and it's not, and it wasn't, they did get stuck in the identity loop. They didn't have the self-awareness to create an exit strategy. I mean, sometimes we get injured and there's no, you were prepared for the runway. What along your journey, do you have moments that really, that I mean, we don't find them online and we don't, it's not something we search, but as a human that you had to, that you look back and you really see like that was a growth period for you. Uh, it could be loss, it could be a breakup, it could be whatever. When you take a step back, um, what were those moments that you felt like really when I'm sure you felt like quitting. I'm assuming as great as you are, did you have a moment where you're like, I'm done with this?
Absolutely. I started going to auditions and they would call everyone's number but mine. And I thought I would literally raise my hand and say, "Can you call those numbers again?" Because I couldn't
Oh,
believe that they were not calling my number.
mm,
And after that happened multiple times, I just thought, maybe this isn't meant for me. And of course, I had those thoughts. When I first started with Lucinda, I tore my gastrocnemius during rehearsal and I couldn't dance for 6 weeks. I
mm,
had just joined the company. They were going on tour. And that was a really challenging time. But what's amazing is what I did was with my calf taped up in the wings, I marked my parts
of
while
course you
my
did.
while the dancers, so I was marking it, I was doing it, and 6 weeks went by. The company was about to go on tour without me, and the person who stepped in for me, she tore her calf muscle. So I went on tour
And you were
because I
prepared.
was ready. I
Yeah.
was ready. So it's being an athlete and being a dancer. There are so many highs and lows.
Mm,
There's so many ups and downs. There's so much emotional trampolining happening. And if you don't have an exit strategy, whether you get injured or whether you age out, you are setting yourself up for suffering.
yeah.
And so I speak to those of you who are still working as athletes. You are more than the sport,
Mm-hmm.
and you're training your mind for the next chapter.
Mm.
And if you need help, please get help.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. There's a line that I hear other athletes say, and I've always said it, sports are what you do. They're not who you are. And how do we cultivate and nurture the other parts of us? Because I'm still here when I take off the jersey. I'm still here if I'm 30 pounds heavier, if I'm 20 pounds lighter, I'm still, worthy of it all. I love that. And thank you for sharing that. One thing that I think is so fascinating about you and that I have so much respect for, and you see this, is the solutions that you create and the opportunities you create for yourself, even while you're injured. I don't know if you've ever seen the David Beckham documentary. He gets like cut from the team and shunned, and he shows up. Had so much respect. He practices by himself, alone, without the
Yeah.
team. That moment to me told me everything that I needed to know about his headspace.
Yeah, he walked the perimeter
I
of
know.
the field by
On it,
himself.
when I saw that, I knew he was like, my heart just like swooned for him, in the sense of, I was like, oh my gosh, I love his spirit. And I see that human spirit in you, and I love that. And I'm drawn to people with that type of drive and determination and the willingness to figure it out. And I can only imagine how you inspired your other teammates or athletes. Sorry, I always say teammates because I'm used to dance. What do you call your dance partner?
Company members.
Company member. Okay. I'm sure you inspired them, but you're embodying that while you're going through a really hard time. I think it really says something about your headspace, which I absolutely love. It makes so much sense. Of course, you were practicing from the sides with your calf taped up. That's what Tricia would do. You did talk in one of your final episodes, you talked about know your worth. You have 5 steps to know your worth. You talked about gratitude, being in the moment, celebrate uniqueness, honor your contributions, and acknowledge your legacy. Can you just explain those a little bit more in depth just for the listeners so that they too can embody the suggestions that you've given and again, for anyone listening, if you go to her episode 607, it is called Know Your Worth, and I can share it with you. Tricia outlines these 5 steps to know your worth, but can you speak more to it?
Yes, I can. Let's start with gratitude, and then I'm going to have you feed the other 4 to me.
Sure, no problem.
We have one life, and it's very short.
Mm.
And if we can embody gratitude for everything that comes to us and for us, then we are going to have a much better, fuller, effortless life. Life is hard.
Yep.
Being a human is hard. Having emotions is complicated. And
Yep.
understanding gratitude can alleviate some of that suffering.
Absolutely. It's funny, sometimes I've always felt that's one of my favorite things is the gratitude because it transforms your perception of the world around you. It does. And people would just simply practice. So for someone who's never practiced gratitude, what would you have them do?
I would say walk around the house. And this is as
Mm,
simple as it can be. Thank you, clock, for telling time.
mm,
Thank you, lamp, for lighting this room. Thank you, chair, for giving me a soft place to sit. That.
yeah. Just as simple. It's great. It's true. And we're all connected. My phone keeps closing on my note page. Okay. So the second is be in the moment.
Being present is something that I really try to practice. And that means being present with everybody that I'm with so that they
Mm,
feel as though they're the only person in the room and that
hmm.
I'm fully invested in them and seeing them. And also being present to what's happening right now, knowing that if you're having emotions that are unpleasant, I'm having discomfort, I'm having sadness. Not I am sad,
Yeah,
I'm having sadness, I'm having grief. And just knowing that this is in the moment and that the moment will change and it'll become next and next. So attaching to this moment, detaching to this moment is going to help you again alleviate the suffering.
yeah. And the way that I perceive that is you can feel the emotion, just don't become the emotion. Like you can feel the
Right.
anger, but don't lash out and be angry. I love that.
Right.
Number 3 is celebrate your uniqueness.
Going back to that photograph in
Hmm.
the
Bam.
BAM Complete Works, I would never have imagined that there would be a photograph of me downstage center representing the Lucinda Childs Dance Company in this coffee table book. And when I look at her now and I think about how unique she was, I didn't acknowledge her uniqueness. I certainly do now. I know
Yeah,
who I am and I'm much older and more wise, but giving yourself permission to acknowledge your uniqueness because there's only one you.
for sure. I can relate to that. Number 4 is honor your contributions.
As athletes, we're striving all the time. More, better, better, better. Win, win, win. And the contributions is the journey. And
Mm.
this is like a Hallmark card right now, not the destination, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
It's about being in the moment and honoring your contributions right now, because that is the ripple effect that's going to have the impact.
yeah. I talk a lot about daily deposits. Like what are your daily
Yes.
deposits? Mentally, physically, spiritual. We need one each day, at least minimum, right? So I love
Yeah.
that. And you never remember, sure, you love the competition and you're on stage, but you look back, like I'm sure you look back at, the 9 months or the process to get there. That means so much more. You're proud of the work you put in. So I love that.
Yeah.
Number 5 is acknowledge your legacy.
Right. We all have a legacy, whether we know it or not. So if you become conscious of your legacy, then you can contribute and make those deposits that are positive and that are
Mm,
going to leave good, lasting, loving legacy behind. But if you're wandering around in anger and dissatisfaction and uh, victim
Mm.
mindset, you're going to leave that legacy too. And people are going to remember the Scrooge.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that you understand you are leaving a legacy no matter what. It's your choice as to what kind of legacy you leave.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. So many great nuggets. And I know we're going to land the plane here shortly. But look, I have one or two more questions for you. When you look back at your younger self, what advice would you give her? I think about the younger listeners too and athletes that tune into this, but what advice would you give your younger self?
I would say you are smarter than you think.
Yeah, I love that. And what are you most proud of today along your journey?
I am most proud that I have been married to the same man for 15 and a half years, together for 17. Being in a relationship is very challenging.
Especially with a
And
strong female like you. You know, it takes a certain person to be with a strong, independent female.
it does, it really does. And so I'm really proud of my most successful production, which is my marriage to Joe Ricci.
Oh, I love that. And he used to dance with one of my friends, I guess we found out. My girlfriend that danced on Broadway. That's too funny, such a small world. Well, you are an inspiration to me. For those of you, I know we talked a lot about Tricia's dance career, but she helps thought leaders. What's the line you use? I wrote it down. You help them. I wrote it down. One sec. Thought leaders effectively communicate for impact. Um, I feel like I walked away with what's my legacy having worked with the 12-week program with you. And I'm not saying that to sell this to anyone. I'm saying that because I truly at my core feel beyond grateful. You really helped me hone my energy too, which can be big and all over. And even when we first started this, like I can be excited and then it's like, oh, bouncing around. But you really helped me train that part of my mind, train my message, take out the fluff and be super intentional. And I mean, you just have watch it on your movie, the big stages. Um, you just have such a natural ability to do that. So if anyone's looking or wanting to take stages or you don't know what your message or legacy is, contact Tricia. But
Oh,
yeah, thank you.
thank thank you. And I'd love to give your listeners an opportunity to have access to this free masterclass that will help them do that. And
Okay.
it's triciabrook.com/command. And it's about commanding any room, and it'll really support them complimentary.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Awesome. When's that running?
They can download it now. It's an
Oh,
on-demand masterclass.
oh, perfect. Even better. You can do it on your own time.
Yep.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't believe we're already at episode 69 of transitioning to life after sports with the wonderful and beautiful Tricia Brouk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janine. I appreciate you.